I think a lot of people don't realize how poor their sleep is. Not being true to myself has such consequences that I do not want to endure. If you're really looking to improve your health, your longevity, you dial in on what you need to improve your sleep. Hi, I'm Sarah Schmidt. I'm 52 years old, and I can honestly say that I have never felt better. For the first 50 years of my life, I navigated some pretty fucking hard things that I like to call my Holy Schmidt moments. They include things like being diagnosed with cancer, navigating my sexuality, adopting children, two divorces, losing my dad, and having a biological child in my 40s. After decades of some really, really hard work, I have fallen deeply in love with myself and my life. Turns out that embracing the magic and the expansion that comes with getting older, it isn't a bad place to start. I'm here to prove that life doesn't have to decline with age. In fact, it gets a whole lot better. On Holy Schmidt, we are going to dive into my curiosities around wellness and longevity and mindset, and we are going to do it with really vulnerable, thoughtful conversations with people that I really love and admire. This season, we are going to celebrate and honor growth and transformation and find profound beauty in connection. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to Holy Schmidt. I am so excited to share with you another episode that is part of what we're calling our stress kit. Today, we are going to talk all about sleep. As I watched and listened to this episode back, I had to pause. I have a ridiculous sleep routine, and we're going to talk all about it. Jessica and Grace are going to share theirs too. But looking back on it, I just was reflecting that, there are a lot of things that I do to try to make sure my sleep is spot on. As you listen today, I really want to encourage you to think about what fits and try it on and let go of those things that just don't feel like they're you. That's really the key to wellness. It's tuning in to what makes you feel your very best self and recognizing that what works for me or works for your best friend isn't necessarily going to be the right thing for you. Today, we're just going to explore rest and sleep, all of its benefits, ways to hack it, why it's important, and we're really hoping we get a conversation going so you can teach us what works best for you. If you go to the show notes, you'll see all kinds of products linked. We encourage you to check those out too, because there are so many good things out there in the marketplace today that can help us be our best selves. And I'm convinced that sleep is the gateway to all the good things. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, great to see you guys.
Hi.
We decided that we were going to spend some time talking about sleep. And you guys know I am such a disciplined person in general, but I feel like sleep is kind of like, I don't know what the word is, like a gateway, to all good things. And, when I don't sleep well or my sleep suffers, it feels like all the other parts of my routine that I'm trying to achieve just aren't as easy to put into place, or, the workout isn't as good. The energy isn't as great. I crave a lot of crap I wouldn't normally eat, all those things. I'm not as patient. My mindset is just a little off. I find it so interesting. It's really, sleep is that critical for me. I'm curious how it is for you guys.
I feel like when I was younger, I have vivid memories of those days where you'd get like so little sleep. Like I'm talking like 4 hours of sleep, and it just hits you like a ton of bricks. You need a ton of food that day because you're just like running on fumes and you're extra hungry. But that wouldn't happen that often that I'd only get 4 hours of sleep, right? And so if I got like 5 or 6 or even 7, I could pretty much get through the day. But it wasn't until maybe my late 20s, I started looking into the impacts of lack of sleep or not great sleep quality, not going into REM, not being in that deep sleep. and noticing, oh wow, like I do crave more sweets or carbs when I don't get that extra rest. I don't have clarity of thought, and it's harder to get through the day without brain fog. I'm craving more coffee. I'm more dehydrated. Like you were saying, the workouts are harder, and really starting to fine tune, okay, what do I need to set me up to get into that REM sleep, to get those certain amount of hours. I feel like my sweet spot is between like 7.5 to 8.5 hours. That would be my ideal sleeping time. Um, but yeah, I feel like this is something that I'm just starting to see some of the effects of it and starting to fine tune that relationship to sleep.
I love sleeping, and I feel like sleep is an important part of my process. Like, I'm a big dreamer. I like go all these places in my imagination. I'm genuinely like pretty bummed out if I don't get ample sleeping time, and I also hate being tired. Like, it's not only like the craving sugar of it all. I just do not like feeling tired. I hate when you're driving and your eyes are about to close and when you feel like your eyes are watering all day. And you just feel a little off and a little more grumpy, and you're like, what's wrong with me? And then you're like, oh, I'm just tired. But another thing that I've noticed is how tied it is to me for to exercise and being physical. Like that real tired where you've you've been outside, you've done a workout, you've used your body, you haven't just sat around like a potato all day. You sleep so much better. So to me, those two things are so tied, because like the speed in which I fall asleep, the deepness in which I sleep really has to do with my physical activities during the day. One thing that's been interesting to navigate for me is sleep and dating, because our partners we all have different patterns. Like I'm an early to bed and like early rise, and I tend to date men that are like, let's go to bed at 1 a.m. And then it's horrible. And I can't get on that schedule. So also curious, like to bring kind of like co-sleeping and like rhythms with other people into the sleep conversation, because that's a really hard one to navigate.
Okay, so let's kick off with what is our current sleep routines? Like, what do we do to prepare for sleep? What time do we go to sleep? Are there any things that we recommend in our unique sleep routines? And then we can kind of see how that shifts with partners. So, Sarah, you have the most robust.
Well,
Kick us
I
off
have
here.
quite a routine. Oh my God. Well, a big part of my sleep routine is the time I eat dinner. So this is crazy. I'm already thinking about what time I'm going to go to bed when I think about what time I'm going to have dinner. I like to be finished eating 3 hours before I go to bed. And I will actually skip dinner if I'm going to violate that significantly. I just won't eat. I'll go to bed hungry. I'll actually sleep better hungry than I will sleep with a full stomach. That can be a really tricky one because not everybody wants to get a 5:30 reservation. But with kids, it's great, and actually there are a lot of more 5:30 reservations available than 8 o'clock. So I tend to be able to get great reservations at great restaurants. But when I go to bed with a full stomach, I just do not sleep. Mike, and I have an 8 sleep mattress, and it's giving me data every morning of my REM, my deep sleep, my HRV score, my heart rate. So my heart rate will be elevated, my HRV will be lower, and my deep sleep will always be less when I've eaten a meal late. If I have to eat a meal late, if I have no choice, it'll be a light meal. It'll be a salad with a vinaigrette and like a very lean protein, like not a high fat meal, not as much protein as I might normally eat, something I can digest a little faster. And I think about this. I mean, I do a lot of other crazy stuff too. I wear the exact same thing to bed every night.
Okay,
365
give us more
days
here.
a year. I have a pair of sweatpants I love, and I own about 10 pairs, the exact same 10 pairs of the sweatpants. And I wear a pair of those every night. And then I have a t-shirt brand. It's just a silly brand. And I have like literally a dozen of those. Some of them have some funny sayings on them, whatever. And my theory on this is that my body doesn't pay attention or feel the nuanced difference in what I'm wearing. So I've tested this. Like if it's cold, let's say I go to bed with socks on, I will wake up an hour, hour and a half later and have to take the socks off because I'll feel the socks on my feet. Right. And it's this sense of like my body feels the same. I have 2 homes. I'm lucky to have 2 houses. I have the same mattress in both places, and I have the same sheets. So like there's no textural differences, like sensory input coming to me from the bed that's different or unique. When I go to a hotel, I'm so aware of the mattress I'm sleeping on or the texture of the sheets or the temperature in the room or the humidity level, all these things. I mean, I just pick up on it. I think all my years of parenting made me kind of a light sleeper. I mean, I had a kid who never slept through the night till he was 5.5. So I think that's what really taught me the value of sleep and saw the impact of a lack of sleep. I was my most unhealthy and unhappy during the time that I had a kid who was waking up every 90 minutes during the night. And it would take like 30 minutes for him to go back to sleep for 5 years. It was rough. So, yeah. I mean, I keep my room dark. We all know about that. I don't have a TV in the room. You know, we're trying to keep all the blue light out of the space. I try to keep my phone a few feet from me. I don't sleep with my phone in a different room. Having teenagers who sometimes aren't at my house. It's just a kid who has health issues. Turning my phone off and putting it in the kitchen isn't an option for me. So I've come up with, some other things to do about that. But I go to bed about the same time every night. I wake up at the same time every morning, even on the weekends.
What time do you go to bed and wake up?
I'm in bed by 9:30 almost every night. And I'm up at between 5 and 5:30 every morning. I might sleep till 6, on a Sunday, but I don't tend to have to set an alarm. I just wake up. And I've always been an early riser. So even as a kid, I'd be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be the kid who was having breakfast when my dad was drinking coffee before he left really early. I would do homework in the morning. I don't know that I ever pulled an all-nighter. Sleep has always been, my mom laughs that, like I was, months old and I was sleeping 13 hours a night. I mean, I do love sleep. I think there's a couple other things. I try not to look at my phone, an hour before I go to bed. I'm not always the best at that. I try to read, versus watch TV before I go to sleep. Those things I notice make a difference in the data that I get the next morning. Like my stress management is key to my sleep. If I'm like in fight or flight all day, I'm not going to sleep well. So it's just this I don't know, it's just the routine that I think gives me the best possible chance. Because there's a lot of disruptions that I have that aren't ones that I can control. Kids, or a dog who's puking in the middle of the night.
Been there this week.
So I'm trying to manage the things I can manage so that the things that I can't don't become as big of a deal. Yeah, this new kind of like socializing and dating era that I'm kind of embarking on, really, Grace, to your point, is really interesting because I'm finding that like there are not a lot of people who do this.
Or want to eat at 5:30 and go to bed at 9.
They'll be like, lunch? No, that's dinner. Yeah, it's dinner. We're having dinner at 5:30.
Yeah, early morning walk. Oh my gosh. I think one thing to point out about everything Sarah's saying is just the thoughtfulness and the introspection around all the different variables. And I think it's a rare quality that I might just invite our audience to explore. Like, what is your relationship with sleep? Have you even thought about these factors at all? And as you were talking before we started recording, I was like, do I do anything special about sleep? Like, I didn't really think I did. And then as you were talking, I was realizing like I sleep with a white noise machine on. I have a little air purifier right next to my bed. I turn my Bluetooth off when I go to sleep. Like just little things like that, which I haven't really clocked as ritual, but they actually are. And I feel them when I'm not there. I've been taking magnesium before bed. And I am a really hot sleeper, like insane furnace. If I sleep in sweatpants and socks, I cannot fall asleep. So I have to wear like tiny shorts and a tank top and Like I try and wear like organic cotton pajamas. Like those are kind of things that I've thought about a little bit related to sleep. And also I've noticed I'm tired at like 10, you know, if I stay up until 11, I am up now until 1 in the morning. It's like I cross a certain threshold and then I'm just wired and I can't fall asleep. Like that happened to me last night. I could have gone to bed at like 10:30, and then I crossed over to the dark side and I could not sleep until like 2 in the morning. And I was so bummed out about it. But it's an interesting thing. I don't know if there's something about that time.
There it says that you really, I mean, with very few exceptions, we need to get to bed no later than 11 because our window for deep sleep, if you track your sleep, you'll go to deep sleep pretty quickly after you fall asleep. If you go to bed, at 1 o'clock, you've missed the opportunity. You probably won't get any or very little deep sleep. So that's why a lot of sleep experts will say you need to be like in bed before 11 to catch the adequate amount of deep sleep that you need. You mentioned temperature, Grace, and I think that's one I didn't talk about, but I run hot and I sleep in a very cold room. So I will keep my air conditioning at 65 degrees and I will keep my heat low, like 63, 64 in the winter. And I use the 8 Sleep mattress, and there's lots of different brands. I happen to love 8 Sleep. And it keeps my core body temperature at the desired level to get the right kind of sleep. And it's adjusting all night, temperature wise, to help me get maximum sleep. It's funny. I was gone for 4 nights. I slept in a hotel. Oh my God. It's the one thing. If I could just bring that along with me when I travel, it would be huge. Cause I spent the whole night with like blankets on, blankets off, blankets on, blankets off. The temperature piece I think is massive.
Well, just to piggyback on some of the stuff you said in there too. So I think the reason that it's around approximately 11 p.m. and it just depends on when the sun sets, but it's because we're supposed to fall asleep a certain amount of hours after the sun has set, because it starts building up the melatonin in our bodies and in our system, saying, okay, if you're in sync with your circadian rhythms and all of that, once the sun sets, it's like, okay, now you're going to flood with this to start getting tired. And if you don't do it, it's like, oh, now we're in the night owl circadian rhythm, so we're going to stay up. And it's like you have that threshold. And then staying in hotels, I read that you usually get the worst night's sleep the first night of a hotel or the first few nights of the hotel, because because it's a new environment, the body scans it like, okay, we're in a potential threat. We don't know the certainties of this environment. The bed texture is different. The temperature is different. The room is different. I hear people walking in the hallway. And so you're really, really alert and subtly alert in hotels that first night in particular, just because of that new environment, which is why I think all of your sleep hacks, Sarah, are so good, because it's almost like that hack to get your body to be as comfortable, as familiar as possible with your settings, so you can just go into your deep sleep.
When I travel, I double down on a lot of my routines. Like Grace, you mentioned magnesium. I take extra magnesium when I travel. I will drink a nighttime tea with maybe like a valerian root or a chamomile. I will be extra diligent about that evening meal and just really making sure, especially the first couple nights, that I'm really dialing it in. I mean, we were just skiing and, I couldn't control the fact that we were at 8,000 feet in the hotel. So just the lack of oxygen was really messing with me. And then add all the other stuff. And I really think, there have been times when I travel and I don't do all those things. And I'll tell you, it's way worse. I use an app on my phone that has a noise machine, and I pick the same one. I don't use it at home, but I use it when I travel. So I hear the same noise in all hotels.
But it's kind of cool because it's giving the template of like in an idealized version, what are some of those things that you can try to strive for and like have that model of. Like hearing your sleep routine, I'm like, wow, okay, maybe I could like test out this or try out that.
I think a lot of people don't realize how poor their sleep is. I think we get accustomed, unless you're monitoring it or measuring it, we get accustomed to whatever it is we're experiencing. And I think there's just a lot of people that don't actually know that they're not getting enough quality sleep. They might say I'm in bed for 8 hours, but if they analyzed it, they get like 20 minutes of deep sleep and maybe a half an hour of REM. It's not enough. and what our brains do in those down times are so critical, right? They're starting to link lack of quality sleep to Alzheimer's onset.
Interesting. Yeah. A lot of people also rely on like weed or alcohol to fall asleep, which also does not actually help you sleep.
No, it makes it
Alcohol will
worse.
help you fall asleep. It'll also help you wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I think there, Dr. Tara Swart, I had an episode with her on another podcast, and she said even having one alcoholic drink can shift your blood levels, your blood sugar levels, to where it interrupts your sleep for the night you drink it and then the night after. And so to think about impacting even one drink is just so wild to think about that impact.
Yeah, I bypass that by I don't drink. I don't drink alcohol. And I don't know. I don't miss it. I don't feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah. I think if I have like a glass of red wine or something, I will have extra magnesium. And I've noticed that seems to balance it. Like it'll help if I have the magnesium to help me stay asleep longer if I do wind up having something. So I'm a night owl. I've always been a night owl. I like the second the sun sets, I'm like, yes, this is my creative time to thrive. That being said, ideal time for me to fall asleep would be around 11. I feel like right now I go to bed between 11 and 12, and then I'll wake up between like 7 and 8. And I will have red light glasses on, like blue light blocking glasses. That makes a big impact. The whole house gets like either incandescent bulbs or non-flicker red bulbs after sunset. Like there are no big overhead lights, anything like that in the house going on. And I've noticed that makes a huge difference. Like little candlelight or even like salt lamps will be on in the bathroom. So like nothing is just bright in your face. And then I have a blackout sleep mask. We typically sleep with blackout curtains, although we haven't put them up in our new place yet, but it is pretty dark in there. Quiet's important, but I can I can sleep through a lot. My fiance gets so mad at me because he is a light sleeper and it takes him a lot of sensory things to be balanced for him to actually drop in. Whereas if I wanted to, I don't do this because ideally I wouldn't have the deepest sleep, but I could watch TV with my red light glasses and fall asleep without anything. Probably because I watched TV before bed as a kid. So it just feels familiar if I did that. But if he watches a screen before bed, forget it. He's not falling asleep for hours. So it's really interesting to see that. I'm trying to think what else I do. I am freezing when I go to bed. So I bundle, but then I wind up stripping things off throughout the night. But I really cannot stand sleeping cold. Like if I feel chilly, like I feel cold, like I can't get like even a little bit warm, it is really hard for me to fall asleep. So I bundle and then I debundle at some point in the night. And I agree too with food. I try not to eat at least 2.5, 3 hours before bed because that does impact me a lot. It's like your body's digesting something. It's not ready to relax yet.
Yeah. One thing I really struggle with is being thirsty in the night, and it wakes me up. Like I have a habit of it too. I don't even know if I am thirsty, but unconsciously I'll like get up, have a drink of water and put the water back down, and I have to have water on my bedside. Sarah, maybe you have some sort of solution to this, an element before bed or something.
So much.
Yeah.
I mean, I bring a glass of water to bed every night. I rarely drink it. In fact, it most often is consumed by my 8-year-old who comes to find me in the middle of the night and then drinks my water and curls in bed with me. But I try not to drink a lot of water after 7:30, 8 o'clock because as it is, I probably am going to get up to go to the bathroom once during the night. And I can go back to sleep very easily. So that's a real gift. I know a lot of people, they wake up at 3, they can't go back to sleep. I can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
But I think I front load my day with water just kind of naturally. I mean, I will drink a liter of water before 8 a.m. every single day. Now I'm trying to offset, like if I'm having 2 espressos, I'm going to drink 4 cups of water. I'm trying to I'm thinking about hydration, but I try to front load it. And then I am not as thirsty, but yeah, I wonder what that is. I mean, I wonder if there's, I wonder if like a mineral, you've got a bit of a mineral imbalance. I'm not a doctor and I shouldn't play one on TV. Well, I actually am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. So I would probably add in some like a Minrex supplement, some kind of mineral supplement, not element, like a true mineral supplement in the beginning of the day, and see if that changes the thirst. Because I wonder if that's if it's not, I don't know if it's thirst, because I doubt you're dehydrated, Grace. I bet you need some more minerals. And most of our water is pretty demineralized that we're drinking. Even the stuff that's coming out of the fancy bottles. I mean, I have one that I drink that's specifically very mineralized. In fact, I have it right here. I drink Gerolsteiner.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one's really good.
And that's a mineralized water, but I would bet that's what's going on there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
There's a mineral supplement that I think you put in my ShopMy that I use.
Oh yeah,
it's Quinton, and and I put one of those every morning in a water bottle.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I do always actually feel a real zing when I take a mineral supplement. And I get water delivered from this Alive water company that's from a spring, but I think doubling down on that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, I do think even our spring water is not as mineralized as it used to be, right? There's just a limited number of places where we can get that water from now. Right. So, I mean, supplementing with a mineral, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think Zymogen makes a really good one called Minrex that I take every morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got to get that.
A few other fun facts with sleep stuff that I found online. So sleep deprivation can reduce your cognitive performance up to 30%, which I think is what leads to what you were saying, any of the degenerative brain diseases as well. But also it helps to flush out your lymphatic system in your brain. So all the toxins that are going on when you're in that deep REM sleep, it helps remove all of the toxins and clear out all of that. So if you don't get enough hours of sleep, or if you don't get enough REM sleep, you're literally stopping the cycle. I think I read somewhere that it takes 8 hours to fully flush. And so if you wake up before 8 hours, then the whole system, kind of like a dishwasher or washing machine, it's like you're cutting that rinse cycle short, which I think is important to know, especially when we're, trying to cut those hours. There's so many biohackers out there, a lot of male biohackers in specific, who are like, I can function off X amount of hours of sleep when I boost this, supplement, or when I use this, and I don't need that much sleep. But there was a study done recently that women actually need more sleep than men. And it's so important to not skimp on that sleep. I think part of the reason is the hormonal aspect of it as well, because there's so much more going on in our systems. But lack of sleep also is linked to 45% increase in heart disease, obesity, diabetes, sleep disruption, likelihood of depression and anxiety by 40 to 60%. I mean, it impacts you a lot. I would argue sleep is sort of step one in any sort of stress kit, caring for yourself, mental health, physical health, like all of it begins with the sleep, because everything else would just be trying to correct on top of the support and repair that your body didn't get while it was resting.
Yeah, I so agree with you. I think you're spot on. And without sleep, it's very hard to implement anything else in that, stress kit, like we're calling it. I mean, your cortisol levels will be so high, it's going to be really difficult to take a deep breath during the day, I mean, just like all these things.
One thing I'm curious about is how you guys sleep. And I struggle with this on your back, on your stomach, on your side, with a pillow between your knees. I find my sleep, I think, is the most disrupted by the position that I'm sleeping in, because if I don't have a pillow between my knees, my hips kind of are uncomfortable. And it's not that good to lay on your stomach. Am I flattening my face out? And then on my back, I feel like I get sleep paralysis sometimes. How are you guys sleeping?
Oh, I forgot to mention that I use mouth tape too.
Oh yeah. How are you liking that?
I forgot about that. So that's part of, I grind my teeth.
Mm.
I also clench my jaw. I don't have TMJ, thank goodness. But I wear like a bite, like a splint to protect my teeth from the
Oh, nice.
grinding. Right. I try to take really good care of the teeth that I have. I like them,
Another
good
good
teeth.
thing for dating.
Yeah, really super attractive. This one's very subtle, very slim, very thin.
Yeah.
But then on top of the mouth guard, right? I use some mouth tape, and it's a little piece that just goes over the top here, just up and down. And it's amazing. I can tell you about the data, the difference between when I use it and when I don't. It's
Wow.
remarkable. Also, when I tape my mouth, it doesn't matter as much how I'm positioned. So if I lay on my back and I don't tape my mouth, I'm going to be open mouth breathing all night. Okay. My sleep won't be as deep. I'm going to wake up with dry mouth. I'm going to be more dehydrated, all those things. Mouth tape eliminates that piece. But even with it, I'm a side sleeper. I go to sleep every night on my left side. And at some point, I roll over to my right. But I definitely sleep like 90% of the time on my side. Yeah. And I have a pillow that is like good for side sleeping, is like really supportive of my giant head and all those things too.
Wait, you're going to have to add that to the shop, Mai, because I'm like, ooh, I need a side. I think I need a side sleeping pillow because mine is a little too cushy.
Yeah, mine's like a memory foam molded pillow that actually, has sort of a concave piece and a really nice bolster that really is positioned well, like in my neck. And I feel like my cervical spine is pretty straight when I use that pillow. That's another thing I miss when I travel, but it's huge. I could not ever take it with me.
Yeah. My Pilates teacher was saying too, pillow between the knees is good for spinal alignment too.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that when I was pregnant, but I never have gotten into using one since then.
Yeah. It's so
I know
interesting.
a lot of people who use body pillows.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm definitely a side sleeper, but I'm a tosser. Like I will move one side to the other side. Occasionally I'll be on my back if I feel like I need to stretch my legs. If I've noticed emotionally, if I am sitting on stored emotions or I haven't like processed them, or I know I'm like in like a moody period, I feel more inclined to sleep on my stomach. And there is a little bit of research behind it that shows that if you feel like unsafe or unprocessed, or it's kind of like nurturing, like babies, they like curl up on their stomachs on their parents. Like that's kind of what you're doing. You're protecting your body while you sleep. So if I know I haven't been processing or looking at something, if I'm stomach sleeping, I'm like, oh shit. All right, what's going on? Like, why do I feel the need to protect? So I'll look into that too. But right now, Theo, our dog, is just has chosen me as his pillow. And no matter how I move, he just contorts his body. He uses my ankles as his pillow. And it does present quite a challenge because I like to not be touched while I sleep.
I was going to say, I mean, it sounds so cute, but I have a like no dogs in bed rule. I used to sleep with dogs in the bed long, long time ago. And then I had children in the bed. Then I got rid of the children. Then I got another child. So I have like a definite no dogs. Actually, my dogs aren't even in the bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I have a 10-pound Chihuahua, so he sleeps in the bed but is less disruptive, and he goes under the covers, so he's not like clamping the covers down. But it's really amazing, like wherever I move, like he'll move out of the way. And I've had so many people also sleep with him because he insists on sleeping with whoever is watching him. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I was afraid I was going to suffocate Donnie or kill him in the sleep. And he like intuitively moves over. So
Sounds like a very conscientious pooch.
I know he also makes his way into my dreams most of the time, which is really interesting. And I'm sure it's because he's in the bed with me,
Right.
So there's like a part of us that's like commingling in the astral plane.
This doesn't sound great for dating, Grace. I'm just going to put it out there.
I think Donnie might be a little bit of a block, honestly.
You said it. I just opened the door.
I had someone gifted me a animal psychic reading, and what they said is that Donnie was my husband in a past life, but he went off to war and never came back. And he has vowed to never leave me in this lifetime, and so he's back with me now. So heartbreaking and sweet, and maybe one of the
and maybe just kind of weird too.
Yeah.
But you bring up this sort of point of like, okay, we just talked about all of our little subtle nuances and all of our preferences and all of our routines. And so how do you do that with somebody else? Yeah. I had everyone knows I recently got divorced, and sleep was a huge issue in our marriage. He had a lot of sleep issues. He had a lot of trouble sleeping. There's a lot of studies on this. There's a lot of couples that struggle with it too. That more and more couples are not sleeping together, and their separate bedrooms is part of their routine to protect sleep.
My mom recently got remarried, and she really struggled with this. And at first they were sleeping in a queen bed, and she was like, I cannot do this. And they solved it by getting 2 different blankets in a king bed. So now they're in the king bed, but they have their own blanket. And I guess this is something they do a lot in Europe. So you're
Every
not, like,
hotel we went
trying
to in
share.
Europe, I was just going to say, had 2 duvets. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I think of this?
Yeah.
That's what Daniel and I have. We have a king bed, but we sleep under 2 different blankets because he likes
wow,
cocoon.
that's so good.
He also puts a protective barrier of pillow. I'm not kidding you, probably 8 pillows. Like every place, like 2 or 3 under his head. He likes to hold one to support his back, one between his legs. Sometimes he'll like put 2 under his knees and sleep up, but then turn side. Like it is insane. He needs like a pregnancy pillow. It is so crazy, but that is his, like, he gets really deep sleep in it.
Wow. The more that Daniel and I have in common. I mean, I also sleep with my head under the covers. Yeah.
That's awesome. I had a kid who used to wrap blankets around her head, which as a parent, you can imagine how terrifying this is because you thought they were going to suffocate themselves. So I'd go in there and I'd unwrap the blankets from her head. And then 90 minutes later, the blankets were wrapped around her head again. And she'd be dripping in sweat. Okay. Now she's a teenager and she still wraps blankets around herself,
Oh my gosh,
and it's hilarious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it so funny, the little quirks? Like, I remember the first time Daniel and I had a sleepover when we first started dating. The first time he came over with his earplugs, with his mouth guard, with his eye mask. And at the time, I mean, I was in my young 20s when we met. I didn't have an eye mask. I didn't have blue light glasses. Like, I didn't know about any of that stuff yet. And I was like, what is this guy doing? Like, what is he wearing? And he had no shame. He was like, yeah, I take my sleep very seriously. And I was like, okay.
He was very smart to do that at the very beginning of the relationship when you were going to be most forgiving.
Uh-huh.
Right? If he had waited a year in to pull all that shit out, you would have been like, no way.
Yeah, but slowly but surely I started adding them. I was like, okay, maybe I need a sleep mask. And I was like, oh yeah, a night guard. Okay, yeah, I'll get one of those too. Like I started adding them into my routine as well.
It's funny. I mean, what's striking me as we're talking is I think the most important thing is that you dial in on what you need to improve your sleep. And there's lots of ways to figure out if it's working. For a long time I wore an Oura ring and I loved my data from my Oura ring. But when I switched to this mattress, it was giving me a lot of the same information and I didn't feel like I was on data overload. I didn't quite need more than that. But testing it out and figuring out what really works for you. I mean, we do this with our diets. People talk about, gluten really upsets my stomach or I can't eat dairy or, I've learned that if I just eat less sugar, I feel a lot better. Whatever it is, I don't drink coffee after 1 o'clock. That's a big one for me, actually. My sleep is very disrupted by any kind of caffeine in the afternoon. I think you got to get curious. Like if you're really looking to improve your health and your longevity, not just your health, your lifespan, but your health span, right? You got to get curious and start asking yourself, what do I need? What really do I need? Is it temperature? Is it texture? Is it, whatever, blankets? Is it mouth tape? Is it when I eat? All these things that we brought up, really figure out what works for you. It's taken me a long time to get my routine kind of in a place where I feel really good about it. And also you throw like partnering and parenting in the mix. You got to be a little flexible, because those are the things you don't have as much control over.
One thing I've been thinking as you guys are talking is feeling confident, having needs, sharing your needs and meeting your needs. And I think especially for women, like we want to pretend like, oh, we're just sleeping over here. We don't need anything, and especially if you're someone who's more health conscious. And like I think of a particular friend who's more sensitive to EMFs, and she doesn't want to be around a lot of Bluetooth and stuff. And it's can be an embarrassing thing to have to bring that up. Like, how would you approach, stating, owning, being confident about your needs so you're not self-sacrificing around other people? And so we're not just like self-isolating because we feel like we can't get our needs met around others.
Okay, this is going to sound harsh, but you just have to own your needs. Like, I don't think you should compromise them at all. I think you should really, but that starts with really knowing what are the needle movers, what is your routine that's going to make you feel optimal. Like Sarah's saying, really test, even if you don't have anything to read the data on, just go by, okay, when I do this, how do I feel in the morning? How did you feel throughout the day? Okay, let's change a different factor, change one thing at a time so you know what the factor was that made the difference. And just clock, when I did this, I actually got really good sleep. Give yourself a rating from 0 to 10. And I think if you do it and you're like, I do notice a difference when I do this and I feel better, don't compromise it. And just gently say like, hey, these are my needs for sleep. Totally understand, especially if you're just starting to date someone or it's new. Like Daniel, the fact that he was like, this is how I sleep, here you go. And he wasn't apologetic about it. He didn't feel ashamed of it. He was like, I know I need this. This makes me the best version of me. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, this is funny and silly, but let's go. And if it is the right person or partner that you're going to be with, they'll totally accept and want to work with you on whatever your routine is, but you have to know it and own it first.
I totally agree with you, Jess. I mean, the older I get, this would have been very hard for me to do in my 30s. It would have been. I wasn't as good at, I don't know that I was even dialed in to know exactly what I needed, let alone state it super clearly. But for me, like, not being true to myself has such consequences that I do not want to endure. I just don't. I don't want to be miserable, and it's funny, the more clear I am and the more I allow people to see the things that are really important to me, the more I find people are more curious about it. I find people are really interested in how I navigate, life without alcohol, or how I do everything without sugar, or all the things I do, or, and they start to admire you for it. I'm quirky, right? But they see the value in it. They see what it does for me. And if they really care about you and they see that you are lit up by your ability to take care of yourself and others, right? Then there's typically not an issue. And frankly, I don't really want to be around the people who don't get that, because it probably means they're not taking very good care of themselves. It's I think I'd rather have a small circle of people who get it than a big circle of people who don't.
And I think, thinking of all the different partnered sleeping or people who have different sleep styles, Grace, you were talking about earlier, you like to go to bed early and the other person's a night owl. Like, how do you manage that? I think it's getting curious on what are those compromises. Is it a situation where people sleep in 2 different rooms? Is it a situation where you're totally excited to go to bed early without them, and then they come in and meet you in their own time, in their own routine? Like, what are those nuances? There was that one period where Daniel was trying to go to bed a lot earlier than I was, and I would, sneak into bed after. And he made sure he had his earplugs in so he couldn't hear me when I was coming in, and it would be as less disruptive as possible. So it's like, what are those things that you can do in the interim to try to compromise so both people can still have their needs met and their ideal conditions met? My grandparents even slept in different bedrooms because my grandpa snored, and my grandma loved it. She was like, oh, I can't wait to go in my room. This is amazing. Bye. See you later. Like, it was the best.
Yeah, that's really cool. I went on a walk with a friend recently, and she told me that like the biggest game changer in her relationship was just coming to terms with the fact that she was an early sleeper and he was a late night sleeper, and they were going to stop trying to sleep together altogether. And like early dating, they were like, we want to try and get every moment of every day together. But then they were both like kind of resentful and unhappy, and one was tired and one wasn't getting their work done because one liked to work at night. And yeah, it may just be something where you have to say we have different styles, and that's great, and that's going to make us happier together during our waking hours.
Compromise.
What do you guys make of napping? Is napping a thing? Does it benefit anyone?
There's supposedly
Boy.
some studies around. I think the ideal from like a Huberman episode I caught a clip of somewhere said like 20 minutes, I want to say, is ideal to like jump in and give you enough of a restorative rest if you're really, really lacking sleep that day. But I think from my recollection, I'll have to link the episode. I think they said if you're underslept, if you can push through and reset the sleep cycle the next night, it's better than napping. It's more restorative to just get it all in one than taking the breaks and napping. But I don't know. There's a lot of women who swear by napping and they love it. I have never been a napper. Even kindergarten nap time, forget it. I was laying on my carpet like, okay, what are we doing? Like, I just could never nap. But some people see great benefit in it.
It's funny. My dad was like a power napper. He would come home for lunch every day from work, and my mom would make him lunch, and then he would take like a 15-minute nap and then go back to work. And you know, literally 15 minutes, and then he'd be ready to go. And this was a guy who started his day at 5 a.m. every single day of the week. You know, I mean, he went hard. I'm a terrible napper. I mean, I think I was a good napper as a kid, but I can't quiet my mind and my body in the middle of the day enough to fall asleep probably more than 1 or 2 times a year. It just isn't in me. And often I wake up from a nap. If I do that, I wake up crabby and like I'm craving chocolate or something, you know, something to kind of rev me up again. It's really interesting. But I read a book and it's driving me crazy that I can't think of the name of the author. It was on sleep. We'll figure this out and we can link it in the show notes. But he talks about like the optimal power nap. This whole book is about sleep. And what he recommends is that, like, let's say you're driving, you know, cross country and you get to that point where you just can't keep your eyes open anymore. Here's what you should do. You should stop and you should get the strongest coffee you can possibly get, like a double shot of espresso or, you know, really super strong drip coffee, and pound it and then go to sleep.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this.
You'll wake up 20 to 25 minutes later and the caffeine will have kicked in and you'll have the benefit of the nap and the caffeine and you will be like alert and ready to roll.
Wow.
Now, I've never tried this because, I mean, I don't know.
We
I
got
just
to
have
give
not
this a
tried
go
it.
in Aspen. Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting concept. I also think there's something about, for me, generationally, like, I don't know, napping was a sign of like, you know, that was leisure. That was, you know, rest. That was like, you couldn't do it anymore. We were wasting time, you know, even though my dad took a nap. I mean, we never sat around. I mean, if I had just said, I'm going to go take a nap when I was, you know, in my teenage years, it would have been like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Get outside and mow the lawn or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
There is a part of me that just, my relationship to rest is not where I'd really like it to be. I would like to have more grace for myself and my need for rest and the value I place on rest. It's getting slightly better, but I have such value in work and output. And I do not have as much value for like the restorative things that I know could really benefit me. Tell me I can't go train hard and lift hard one day and I'm going to be disappointed. You know, it's just, I'd just rather do that than go to yoga.
I wonder for you, just as a creative, sometimes like right before bed, I'm like, I know what to do. And like when I was building out like my freelance website, I woke up at like 10 and I was like, I know what to do on the website. And I like sat up, got on my laptop and like spent 4 hours building it. And I was like, yes. And if I had like punted the inspiration, I don't think I would have done it the next day. I had to like work while I had the muse. And Yeah. And I think a lot of people, especially, creatives or people who are making something or have an idea, like when it's time to write, the writing takes over. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that's partially why the night owl feels so true, because there's something about, like, during the day, it feels like a lot of people are pulling at you, whether you have kids, whether you're managing a team, whether you're at an office, a busy office, whether you're whatever, around all these people, there's constant requests of you. And it's almost like after the sun sets, after the kids go to bed, after whatever, it's like your brain is like, this is just you time. Now you can tap into that creativity. Now you can tap into the beyond of it all. And I'll notice, especially if I have exercised in some way, shape, or form that day, and if I've gotten into nature, like seen sunlight at some point, the creativity is stronger. Because if not, then I might be like physically tired, like I might be worn from the day and I didn't really get the energy from a workout. But if I have that, then at night it's like a lightning bolt of like, okay, cool. This is an idea for this, or this is an idea for that. And I think just take it and use it. Um, Daniel's like that, but worse. He could go into like all night long if he really wanted to, but he's tried to value his rest a lot more because he knows that it'll just screw him up the whole next day if he does that. So he has to tamper his creative flow a little bit after a certain hour.
Grace, do you find you get those bursts regularly at night, or is it just here and there?
Here and there, really, maybe once a quarter. And when it comes, I'm like, phew, I needed to get that thing done. So I'm willing to give up the next day for it. But why I asked is because when it comes up, I'm sometimes like, I should just sleep and do this tomorrow, and I'll have more energy to do it tomorrow. But I actually don't find that's true. But I think it's more a sense of me having the energy to do something or the inspiration to do something rather than it's like a biological, like I have sleep, now I can work. It's more of a like, now it strikes, just get it out. And sometimes the more and more I put off like creative output, the farther and further away it gets.
I also think that it's important to not become a slave to our routines.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to serve us ultimately, but
Mm-hmm.
you got to have some flexibility in that for
Yeah.
times when they're not feasible, they're not desirable, whatever. I mean, I think, eat the chocolate cake, stay out late, have fun, whatever it is, you got to do all those things too. It's for me, the more disciplined I am in the day to day, the easier it is for me to be flexible, spontaneous, and all those things too. And then I rebound back to my baseline quicker, because there is that discipline in the majority of my days.
There was a study, and this is just about consistency of timing of sleep. But there was a study, I'll have to link it. I think it was on performance athletes. It might have been Dr. Lyon. We can cut this if it's not. But they said that they tested the performance of different athletes, and those that had the same bedtime and wake up time consistently, whether it was a weekday or weekend, they kept that consistent for longer, had better performance than those who may have slept more hours but were inconsistent on when they went to bed and when they woke up, which I thought was really fascinating and definitely something I have not perfected by any means, but working towards getting there. Curious if any of our audience has clocked that they have better sleep or performance or cognition or anything when they go to bed and wake up at the same time.
I mean, I work out at the same time every day, and when my sleep is poor, it's a lot harder. My workout is not as good. It's a lot harder to do it. I mean, there's just no question that those two things are inextricably linked for me.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some stat that I didn't look up, but we can cut this, that if you work out while you're tired or too tired, it's almost like drunk driving or something. There's like something so tightly woven to like trying to do something really physical while you're tired, where it's like not always the best idea to push through it. And I'm talking like if you've gotten 2 hours of sleep or whatever, like it's not always like more pain, more gain. Like sometimes it's not serving you. Sometimes you're just spiking your cortisol up. We were talking about somebody that Sarah works out with where, it's like so much stressful exercise that it's like hard to see result because your body's just in stress all the time. So when we talk about stress kit too, I think it's also audit of the stress factors of like, if I'm not sleeping and my stress is up, and then I'm doing hard workout and my stress is up, and then I'm eating sugar, which is hiking my stress up. Like ultimately, how are you kind of looking at all the puzzle pieces and like adjusting them so you can do the hard workout and get the benefits because you've had the good sleep and because you're not eating the sugar, and then you see results from your workout and you're kinder to other people. It's really a dance on how all of those like kind of stress puzzle pieces fit together.
It would be really interesting to get a conversation going with people who've listened to this today, really, and hear a little bit about people's reaction to it. What, like, not only what resonates, but what else? Because I think what we've just outlined is there's a lot of things you can do to improve your sleep, and lots of possibilities, and not everything works for everybody. It would be interesting to hear, especially differences between, men and women. Differences in generationally, I mean, there's just so many variables. And I think it's, we can all learn from each other here. I mean, I've learned a ton just listening to you guys today.
Yeah. In the comments, let us know what's working for you guys too. Because I want to see, that'd be kind of cool if we, especially in the comments on YouTube or Spotify, if people are leaving what they do that works. And then now you guys can have a whole options to look at, choose from, test. Um, a- yeah. And I think you kind of nailed it too, Sarah, with, be your own expert on your body. Every body is so different and runs so different. So just see it as an experiment of like, okay, what are the things that when I do it, I notice a big impact. I feel better. My stress is better. And that could change over different seasons too, at different ages, if if you have kids, like if you're pregnant, there's so many factors. So just see it as a little
Yeah.
sleep experiment.
We didn't talk about all the sleep issues that come with midlife and menopause and aging and all these things too. I mean, and I think the most important thing is being dialed in to having a sense of, through all those stages, what's truly helping you, what's serving you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, stay tuned. We're going to tackle another pillar of what we consider a stress kit next. And we're really glad you tuned in.
Get some good sleep, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Sleep tight.